McColl's body was found in a remote ditch in a farmer's field near Nanton 3 days after she went missing. The Crown Prosecutor, Shane Parker, says that McColl had been strangled and suffered a fractured skull from multiple blows to the head. Parker told the jury that Parent had purchased a one-way ticket to Ottawa a day after McColl went missing.
It was Valentine's Day 2002. Adrienne McColl was supposed to meet her friends. She never showed, no texts, no calls, just silence. 3 days later, a rancher on horseback found her body wrapped in plastic, dumped in a ditch 80 kilometers from Calgary. No shoes, no jacket. Cold February air. Her boyfriend gone. He caught a 7:30 a.m. flight, paid in cash. And just like that, the search for answers began. This is the story of Stephane Parent and the woman whose voice was silenced forever.
The CanLII Files. Real courtrooms. Real people. Real cases. Every episode, we bring you inside Canadian courtrooms, where lives change in a moment and justice is decided. No actors, no fiction, just the truth, told in full. These are real cases, drawn straight from the official court records. Let's begin.
A father, a stepdad, and a best friend still grieving the loss of a 21-year-old woman whose death remains a mystery.
She always listened, always knew the right things to say. The most beautiful smile and personality.
27-year veteran with the RCMP emailed Adrienne from Kosovo, where he was on a peacekeeping mission.
I was starting to get concerned, and I sent her an email just saying, haven't heard from you, let me know you're okay, and told her I loved her, and that was it.
4 days later, his worst fear came true. Adrienne's body was discovered in a ditch near Nanton. No clue how she got there, no clue who brought her.
21, and just absolutely beautiful. She was a beautiful person with a beautiful soul.
Tragically, 21-year-old Adrienne McColl would never get to see what her future held. Her body found in a rancher's field near Nanton in February 2002.
We were supposed to go out Valentine's, and she never showed up.
Her name was Adrienne McColl. She grew up in Alberta. No record tells us exactly where or how, but by the time she turned 19, she was already working, independent, and living in Calgary. She worked behind the bar at a nightclub called Studio 82, located in the southwest of the city. The club was owned by her stepfather, John McGee. That detail mattered, because John wasn't just a stepdad. He was protective, involved. It was Adrienne's world, a place where she mixed with regulars, managed late hours, and kept a strong circle of friends. That's where she met him. Stephane Parent, 12 years older, a man in his early 30s. He also worked at Studio 82, and when Adrienne, barely an adult, met him, she fell hard. There's no exact detail about how fast things moved, but soon enough they were in a relationship. Witnesses who worked with her said the couple fought often. Loudly, Adrienne didn't always hide it. She'd show up with bruises on her neck. She told co-workers that Stephane had choked her, thrown her into a wall, and once asked someone to call the police after a fight. These weren't one-off stories. These were patterns, and yet they stayed together. In late 2000, Adrienne and Stephane moved in together, into a condo they shared. Then in summer 2001, they moved again, into a rented house. It looked like commitment, like stability, but things didn't get better. Instead, something tragic happened. On October 5, 2001, Adrienne gave birth to a stillborn baby boy. That loss changed everything. She was 21, just beginning her life, and now she was grieving a child who never opened his eyes. Then, only months later, in January 2002, she suffered another pregnancy loss. Back-to-back heartbreak. Her relationship with Stephane did not survive it, at least not emotionally. By the end of that month, Adrienne had moved out and returned to her stepfather's townhouse. She needed comfort, safety. John McGee let her back in, but he laid down rules. Stephane was banned from the house. Adrienne had permission to use John's car. Stephane did not. But even with those boundaries, Adrienne continued to see Stephane. When John left town, like he did on February 12, 2002 for a golf trip in Phoenix, Stephane would stay over. That final week of her life, Adrienne was still trying to live normally. She made plans with friends for Valentine's Day. She spoke on the phone with someone around 5 p.m. on February 14th.
Adrienne McColl. They talked on the phone February 13th, 2002, the day before she disappeared.
What was she planning for the day?
Going to the dentist, things like that, just that was about it. That was our big plan, going to the dentist that day.
We were supposed to go out Valentine's, and she never showed up.
John McGee had some ideas, but no proof.
As far as what happened, our immediate family or my family, none of us know how Adrienne died or what did happen.
Last seen on Valentine's Day, identified through her records and the things she still wore when they pulled the bags off her body. Her last contact was a phone call just after 5 p.m. on February 14th. And after that, nothing. Instead, she was gone. So was his car. The one person still in contact with Adrienne, the one who had access when McGee was away, was her boyfriend, Stephane Parent. Police learned quickly that Stephane had a history with her. He was 12 years older. Their relationship was known to be rocky. McGee had forbidden him from staying at the house. But everyone seemed to know that when McGee left town, Stephane stayed anyway. And McGee had left town on February 12th. That placed Stephane in proximity, in private, in control. Police went to the townhouse Adrienne had been living in. The inside was quiet. No mess. No broken glass, no forced entry. The doors were locked. The rooms were clean. But her bed, made with only the fitted sheet and pillowcases, was missing the top sheet. In the bathroom, neatly stacked pink towels. Under the kitchen sink, a roll of blue plastic garbage bags, all items eerily familiar. Adrienne had been found wrapped in a pink towel, a patterned sheet, and blue bags tied at the ends. The wrapping wasn't accidental. It was organized, chosen, taken from this home. The investigators took notes. They bagged matching samples, photographed every drawer, compared the sheet's pattern against the fabric they found. The match was unmistakable. She had been killed here, or very close to here. Her shoes weren't found with her body, just socks. Nothing to cover her feet in the February cold. They turned their focus to the car. It took hours to locate, but when they found it, everything changed. McGee's vehicle had been parked at Calgary International Airport in the Park and Fly lot, row C. It had been there for days, long before anyone even knew Adrienne was missing. Inside the trunk, officers found her sandals, the ones she always wore, the ones she hadn't been wearing when she was found. That alone placed her inside the vehicle, or at least placed her belongings in the vehicle, before the body was dumped. The timestamp on the parking ticket read 4:58 a.m., February 15th. Adrienne's last known phone call, 5 p.m., February 14th. The car had been parked hours later, before sunrise, then left abandoned. Whoever had used it had walked into the airport terminal and vanished. Officers canvassed airline counters. They spoke to staff. WestJet employees remembered a man who'd come in early. French accent, no reservation, no checked baggage. He hadn't asked for a flight to anywhere in particular. He just asked, "What's the next flight out?" They told him, Ottawa. 7:30 a.m., he paid in cash. He boarded. He left. It was Stephane Parent. At that point, the police moved to question him. They asked when he had last seen Adrienne. Stephane said she had been asleep when he left. He said he didn't want to wake her. He borrowed her stepfather's car, the one he had no permission to use, and drove himself to the airport. He said she was supposed to come later and pick up the car. They asked again. The version changed. Earlier, he had told his stepsister something different, that Adrienne had dropped him off, that she had driven him, that he thought someone may have seen her and followed her. When asked why the story changed, he said he wasn't in his right mind, that he was in shock, but it was already unraveling. 2 stories, 1 woman dead, 1 man, already gone by the time her body was found. Still, something held the case back, because with all the details, the missing sheet, the towel, the bags, the car, the odd behavior, the investigators still couldn't answer one final question. When did Adrienne McColl die? The cold had preserved her, frozen the timeline, made it impossible in 2002 to say whether she had been killed before or after Stephane boarded that plane. And without that one detail, prosecutors hesitated. They believed it was him. Everything pointed his way. But they couldn't prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Not then. So the file was marked incomplete. Not closed, not cleared, just stalled. And in the early spring of 2002, the case of Adrienne McColl was shelved, frozen like the ground they found her in, and left in silence.
That's why on this anniversary, police, family, and friends are urging anyone with any information to come forward so they can finally say goodbye.
We travel to Ottawa, which would be probably the 3rd trip that I've made to Ottawa. The other 2 trips were to talk to him, that we were unable to either reach him, or when we did reach him on the phone, he wouldn't agree to speak to us.
Police again hoped to talk with Parent when he was picked up on 2 unrelated arrest warrants, but the warrants were dismissed and Parent was released. To date, the 33-year-old has refused to talk, and with no other evidence, RCMP are stuck, and so is Adrienne's family.
For any kind of closure to happen here, we're going to have to solve this.
16 years after Adrienne McColl was found in a ditch outside Nanton, Alberta, the silence around her murder was broken. Not by a confession, not by a witness, by evidence that had always been there, but now it could finally speak. The first breakthrough came with the blue plastic garbage bags, the same kind found under the kitchen sink in her stepfather's townhouse. Adrienne's body had been wrapped in several of them, tied shut. The original investigators had carefully preserved the bags. This time the system gave a definitive match: Stephane Parent. His print was on the drawstring, near where the bag had been tied shut. The second breakthrough came from an overlooked detail in the airport parking lot. Back in 2002, investigators had found a pair of discarded men's jeans on the pavement, 2 stalls away from where Adrienne's stepfather's car was parked. There was no ID inside, no wallet, just a pair of pants tossed like trash. In 2002, they were suspicious. In 2018, they were evidence. The inner pockets of the jeans were swabbed using modern touch DNA analysis, a technique that didn't exist in its current form back when the jeans were first recovered. Inside both pockets, scientists found Stephane Parent's DNA profile. Not just one hit both pockets, both hands clear ownership. Then came the part that changed everything. On the lower pant leg, technicians found a small blood stain. They tested it. It matched Adrienne McColl's genetic profile, indisputably. Her blood on a pair of pants, discarded just meters from the car that moved her body, and the man's DNA inside the pockets. Then came the final piece. Inside the trunk of the car, the same car Stephane had no permission to use, investigators had lifted several latent prints back in 2002. In 2018, they were reanalyzed. One of those trunk liner prints matched Stephane Parent again. In summary, the Crown now had his fingerprint on a garbage bag that wrapped her body, his fingerprint in the trunk that moved her body, his DNA inside the jeans discarded beside the car, and Adrienne's blood on those same jeans. None of this was speculative. None of it was hearsay. All of it was collected in 2002, but only became decisive when science caught up. It was clean, it was physical, and it was enough. In early 2018, prosecutors approved charges. An arrest warrant was issued in Gatineau, Quebec, where Stephane had quietly been living for years. And when officers arrived, he didn't run. He didn't speak, he didn't resist. The silence that had lasted 16 years stayed with him. But the evidence, it spoke loud enough for both of them.
A trial is now underway for a man charged with killing his girlfriend almost 20 years ago. Jackie Wilson is at the courthouse for us live tonight with more on what happened on day 1. Jackie?
Joel, jurors were sworn in today at the Calgary Court Centre. They're set to begin a 3-week second-degree murder trial for Stephane Parent. 52-year-old Parent pleaded not guilty to the Valentine's Day homicide of his on and off again girlfriend, Adrienne McColl, in 2002. Now, it wasn't until 16 years after her death that Parent was arrested and charged, and now, 19 years later, the trial is underway. McColl's body was found in a remote ditch in a farmer's field near Nanton 3 days after she went missing. The Crown prosecutor, Shane Parker, says that McColl had been strangled and suffered a fractured skull from multiple blows to the head. Parker told the jury that Parent had purchased a one-way ticket to Ottawa a day after McColl went missing. We heard from the trial's first 2 witnesses today, McColl's best friend since grade 7 and a co-worker of Parent and McColl at Studio 82, a bar where they both worked. Now, the best friend remembers McColl having a miscarriage and a stillbirth with Parent, and how towards the end of McColl's life, Parent was living out of his car. She also says that he didn't return to Calgary for her funeral. Now, the co-worker recalls a fight one night at the bar where they both worked, and McColl asked him to call 911 after Parent allegedly choked her during a fight. He says the two did fight often. And Joel, according to the Crown, over the next 3 weeks for this trial, 35 witnesses will be called to the stand.
All right, Jackie Wilson reporting live for us. Thank you, Jackie.
Stephane Joseph Raymond Parent was found guilty of second-degree murder by a jury in September 2021, nearly 2 decades after Adrienne McColl was killed. On January 21, 2022, Justice C.S. Anderson sentenced him to life imprisonment with no eligibility for parole for 17 years. This means Parent will not be allowed to even apply for parole until 2039. He later appealed both his conviction and sentence. The Alberta Court of Appeal dismissed both appeals. The conviction appeal in 2023, R.V. Parent, 2023 ABCA 253, and the sentence appeal in 2025, R.V. Parent, 2025 ABCA 188. The court found no legal errors and confirmed the 17-year parole ineligibility was appropriate. As of now, Stephane Parent is serving a life sentence in a federal prison.